Thank you very much. I will be speaking on ABPM. ABPM is actually ambulatory blood pressure monitoring and how to interpret that. When you speak about blood pressure, there are three methods of checking it in a very broad sense. One is the office or the clinic blood pressure, which we ordinarily do. That is the most commonly used and the time-honored so-called gold standard, though in reality it may not be the gold standard. And then you have the ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, the home blood pressure monitoring. We should understand that the blood pressure changes in all individuals between the different times of the day, night, and all that. So the office blood pressure or the clinic blood pressure is something like the random blood sugar. It has a lot of limitation, You just check the blood pressure. Whereas ABPM is something like your HbA1c. You get an idea about what is happening throughout 24 hours. HBPM, you get an idea about what is happening during the daytime, but you don't have any idea about what is happening during nighttime. So that is the basic difference between these three. Clinic BP is random blood sugar, ABPM is HbA1c, and HBPM is the average of what is happening during your day-to-day activities during the daytime. And this is how the equipment looks like. It is very simple. You have this sphygmomanometer cuff that is connected to the monitor by means of a tube that goes under the shirt, and that is shown there. And it can be continuously recorded, ordinarily for around 24 hours. And then subsequently you analyze it and you get a printout. Now the discussion is how we are going to interpret this ABPM recording. And this is how a normal ABPM will look like. On the x-axis, you have the time. In fact, this ABPM, the equipment was fixed by around 10 a.m. in the morning. It was connected at 10 a.m. On the y-axis, you have the blood pressure, and you have the high normal band and the optimal band shown there. And the daytime period is shown in the white color, the nighttime period in the blue color. The systolic blood pressure is shown above, the diastolic pressure is shown below. And immediately after connecting the ABPM, there is some white coat window because the person will be a little excited and all that. And we have two more windows. One is the vesperal window, that is during night from 10 p.m. to coming down to say 2 a.m. or 2:30 a.m. when the blood pressure comes down. And during the morning time, there is that matinal window that is actually the early morning surge, the morning surge. So be aware of these three windows. The white coat window immediately after connecting the ABPM, the vesperal window in the night, the early morning, the night and early morning, when there is a nocturnal dip. And morning, there is that matinal window when there is a morning surge. This nocturnal dip and morning surge are extremely important. That is shown by that blue lines, the nocturnal dip and the morning surge. And rest of the things are shown there. So this is how the ABPM recording will look like. And we should have some idea about what is normal and what is abnormal. The blood pressure during the daytime, that is what is shown in that green color, that should not go beyond 135/85. The nocturnal blood pressure should be much lower. It should not go above 120/70. And throughout 24 hours, that is a red color, it should not go above 130/80. So these are the three normal values which you should remember. So 130/80 during 24 hours, 120/70 during the night, and 135/85 is the mean daytime blood pressure. And the home blood pressure monitoring, HBPM, is like the daytime BP, so that the upper limit of HBPM will be like the daytime BP of ABPM. That is 135/85. So remember these values because it will be important. This tells us something about various terminologies. You have the ambulatory blood pressure monitoring on the x-axis and the clinic blood pressure on the y-axis. In sustained hypertension, both will be elevated. In true normotension, that is normal blood pressure people, both will be normal. Then there are two terms. One is the white coat hypertension. In white coat hypertension, you find the clinic BP is high, but the ABPM is normal. Then you have the opposite of white coat hypertension, which is called masked hypertension. What is masked hypertension? The clinic BP, when you record, it is below 140 by 90. But when you record the ABPM, you find 24-hour ABPM is exceeding 130 by 80. Or your daytime ABPM is exceeding 135 by 85. So this is an ABPM recording in which you can demonstrate the white coat hypertension. So this is soon after the person gets up, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, there is a meeting and it is a little stressful thing. So immediately the blood pressure goes up. This is the so-called white coat hypertension. It can be in relation to any stress, white coat hypertension. And there is something which is even more common, that is a white coat effect. That is, the person is already hypertensive, but there is further increase in blood pressure when the BP is being recorded. That is, rise in BP occurring in a clinical environment. The office BP more than 20 by 10 compared to the awake ambulatory blood pressure. This is an important cause for pseudo-resistant hypertension. So white coat hypertension and white coat effect. The difference is you call white coat hypertension in someone who has normal blood pressure during the ABPM. You call it white coat effect when someone already has hypertension, but there is further increase in the blood pressure in relation to a stress. But is this white coat hypertension totally benign? It is not totally benign. As is shown here, this red line is the normal blood pressure. This green is the white coat hypertension, and the black is the hypertension, real hypertension. Cardiovascular death, cardiovascular event, and all-cause mortality. The white coat hypertension is actually between someone with normal blood pressure and real hypertensive patient. So you cannot take it as a totally benign condition. Now, when you look at masked hypertension is your clinic BP is normal, but ABPM is high. There are three types of masked hypertension. The increase in BP can happen during the morning hours, the early morning, soon after getting up, morning hypertension, or it can be daytime hypertension, or it can be nocturnal hypertension. And the underlying factor varies. Morning hypertension, it can be high salt intake, alcohol, smoking, and all that. Daytime hypertension very often is related to stress, either work stress, home stress, smoking, and things like that. And nocturnal hypertension, very, very important point, it can be related to obstructive sleep apnea. It is common in people with CKD. It is common in diabetic, high salt intake, insomnia. So all these contribute to nocturnal hypertension. And the only way you can diagnose nocturnal hypertension is by doing an ABPM monitoring. It cannot be detected even by home blood pressure monitoring. The only way you can diagnose nocturnal hypertension is by ABPM. If the blood pressure reading is above 120 by 70, it is abnormal. Let us become familiar with some of the terminologies. Mean blood pressure I have already mentioned. Then daytime, nighttime blood pressure I have already mentioned. Then there is something called BPV, blood pressure variability, standard deviation and BPV, percent time elevation, hyperbaric impact, diurnal index, dipping pattern, morning surge, and something like double product. Okay, I will try to explain this. This is one term which is gaining more and more importance, the so-called BPV, blood pressure variability, standard deviation, and BPV. This is a measure in millimeters of mercury by which each value deviates from the mean. So you have a mean value. So how much is the fluctuation moving up and down? Normal value will be 6 to 12 on an average. In between, you may find higher fluctuation, but Most of the time, it will be in that range. Now, BPV, you have short-term BPV and long-term BPV. Short-term BPV can be very short. It can even be beat-to-beat variation. It can be within 24-hour period, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to night. This all comes in the category of short-term BPV. Then you can have long-term BPV, day to day. You check the BP today, it is 130 by 80. You check the BP after 2 days, it is 150 by 100. Or visit to visit, seasonal. They all come in the category of BPV. This is the ABPM of 2 people. So this is one patient. The BPV over a span of 3 weeks, you find the fluctuation is not too much. Where here, second patient, the fluctuation is too much. BPV is very bad. BP is linked to MACE, major adverse cardiac events. So it is better to have minimum blood pressure variation during 24 hours as well as a long span of time. This shows the impact of nocturnal BP fall and short-term BPV. 24-hour intra-arterial blood pressure recording. Suppose you are getting a recording like this. There is no fluctuation. There is no BPV. There is no blood pressure variability. And there is a nocturnal dip. This is the ideal thing. This is the ideal thing. 2 things are there. 1, there is a nocturnal dip. And number 2, there is no significant variation. So this is protective. And on the other hand, here you find the blood pressure is remaining elevated and a lot of fluctuation, indicating that significant BPV, this is very bad. This is actually damaging. So looking at the ABPM, you can find out which is the protective thing and which is the damaging thing. If you find a nocturnal dip, no significant morning surge, your mean blood pressure is in the normal range and BPV is minimum, it is protective. But if you find absence of nocturnal dip, significant early morning surge, most of the BP recordings are high during day and night, your mean BP is also high with significant fluctuation, high blood pressure variability, that is damaging. It is related to a lot of adverse effect. Now, what is the effect of different antihypertensive agents on blood pressure variability? Very, very important point. Please do understand that. There are only 2 drugs which will reduce the blood pressure variability. The first one is calcium channel blocker, amlodipine. That is the drug to be given in people with significant blood pressure variability. Or one of the other calcium channel blockers. Or a non-loop diuretic like chlorthalidone or hydrochlorothiazide or indapamide. Whereas the ACE inhibitors, ARBs and beta blockers actually tend to increase the blood pressure variability. So looking from that angle, they are not really good drugs for that. And if you compare the calcium channel blocker with placebo, there's a 24% difference. So whenever you find a patient with blood pressure variability, choose a calcium channel blocker. Choose a thiazide-like diuretic. Now, what is hyperbaric impact, HBI? You are trying to quantify the blood pressure load. How long and how elevated the blood pressure occurred during 24 hours. This is a real quantitative measure of hypertension. And there are different ways of expressing that. I will tell an example. Say one person during 24 hours, you find, say 18 hours, the blood pressure is remaining elevated. So the blood pressure load is very high. In another person, okay, there are abnormal readings, but altogether you find only during 2 hours, the blood pressure is remaining elevated. The hyperbaric impact in the second patient is less. So this is a quantitative measurement. This is not possible with the ordinary methods of taking blood pressure. Now, diurnal index, you please understand this is very, very important. This is the difference of mean systolic BP between awake and the sleep period. How can we represent that? There is a formula. 1 minus systolic BP during night divided by systolic blood pressure during day, you multiply it by 100. Then you get a percentage. That is the diurnal index. And normal dipping will be 10 to 20%. If it is below 10%, they are non-dippers. That is bad. It is linked to left ventricular hypertrophy, future cardiovascular events, microalbuminuria, CKD, and all bad things. As we tell generally, hypertension, we tell about the pump, you tell about the pipe, and you tell about the filter. So it can damage the pump, the heart, it can damage the filter, that is the kidney, and it can damage your pipe. So it can produce atherosclerosis, the vascular remodeling, and all those things. So this is how you calculate the diurnal index. Let us take a patient. The mean blood pressure during daytime, systolic BP 120. Mean systolic BP during night time is 100. So 100 divided by 120 is 0.83. So you subtract 0.83 from 1, you get 0.17. You multiply by 100, you get 17%. So this patient has a diurnal index of 17%, which is quite acceptable, normal dipping. Okay, good. Then something called reverse dipping. That is the nocturnal BP is higher, which is very, very bad. This is associated with the worst prognosis. This has a relation with CKD. People with CKD sometimes have this reverse dipping, higher incidence of coronary events and stroke. Many times in the night, the person develops a stroke and acute MI. The opposite of that, you can have extreme dipping. The diurnal index is more than 20%, which is also not very good. It can be bad. This is linked to non-fatal stroke and silent myocardial ischemia in people with underlying atherosclerotic vascular disease. Many times this is due to aggressive antihypertensive medication. So if you detect that, you will adjust the dose of the drugs. And both systolic BP and diastolic BP are important. We should understand that the coronary perfusion happened during diastole. So in elderly people with atherosclerotic vascular disease, if there is extreme dipping of the diastolic blood pressure during night, and if the diastolic BP comes down to something like 40 and all that, that is not good. People can develop myocardial ischemia. And whenever you find this extreme dipping, when the person gets up in the morning, suddenly an increase in BP. So there is an excessive morning BP surge. So these two things usually go together, extreme dipping and excessive morning blood pressure surge. So this is an ABPM of a patient. You look at this green is the systolic BP, this yellow is the diastolic BP. You find mild elevation on the blood pressure. So mild hypertension, but something very good, nocturnal dip. There is a nocturnal dip. The BP falls by around 10 to 20%. So this is not too bad. A hypertensive dipper is better than a hypertensive non-dipper. Now this is again a hypertensive, but the difference here you find the systolic BP and diastolic BP all along is remaining elevated, both during daytime as well as nocturnal. And more important, there is no nocturnal dip. There is no dip. The diurnal index is less than 10%. So this is bad. This is a hypertensive patient who is a non-dipper. So he is likely to have major adverse cardiac events like stroke, coronary events, and things like that. Now this is the worst scenario. That is the reverse dipper, something you find in people with CKD, obstructive sleep apnea, and things like that. During night, the blood pressure increases. Instead of the dip, it goes up. So that is very bad. That is the reverse dipper. Now, this is what I told earlier. This is an extreme dipper. The person is hypertensive. You find the systolic BP like 170 to 210 and all that. The diastolic BP is also high. Sometimes it reaches even 120 and all that, 130. But look at what is happening during night. It is coming down to values like 90 by 50 and all that. This is very bad. Hypertensive extreme dipper is very bad, where the diurnal index is more than 20% and then an early morning surge. So three bad things. The blood pressure is uncontrolled, extreme dipper, and morning surge. So in such people, the major adverse cardiac events tend to be higher. These things can be detected only by an ABP. And nocturnal BP changes and cardiovascular mortality. We have some data. Suppose you take a value of 1 for dipper. In non-dippers, it is 2.5 times higher. And in people who have a paradoxical increase in nocturnal BP, like what you find in CKD, the cardiovascular mortality is 2.69 times higher. And something about morning surge. What is morning surge? Morning surge happens in all people. Soon after you get up from sleep, your blood pressure tends to increase, but it should not go too high. This is the difference in systolic BP during the first 2 hours after awakening and the lowest level recorded during night. You are comparing the two. And normally, it should not be more than 20%. Excessive morning surge is related to increased sympathetic activity, and it is related to coronary events, stroke, sudden cardiac death, arrhythmia, and things like that. And that is what is shown there. This is the time the person got up from sleep, the blood pressure increasing. This is the morning surge. Now, there are different ways of representing it. One is you can take the lowest blood pressure recorded during night and compare with that. And another thing, you can take the evening blood pressure and compare with that. The point is, sudden increase in the early morning BP is something very bad. Now, the easiest definition will be, you find out whether the morning BP goes above 135/85 when you do an ABPM or even an HBPM, home blood pressure monitoring. So elevation of BP above 135/85 during the first 2 hours after waking, but not in the evening. Here the BP is normal, but during the morning hours, the blood pressure is high. And what causes this morning surge? It can be due to multiple factors. It is due to a sympathetic surge, but important things are, it can be related to stress, it can be related to smoking, it can be related to alcohol, insomnia and obstructive sleep apnea, very, very important. And nighttime surge, many times linked to sleep, arousal, REM sleep, obstructive sleep apnea, nocturia. And this was discussed earlier. The absence of nighttime dipping in people who take increased salt intake, salt sensitivity, CKD, diabetes, insomnia, and all these things we discussed. Now, what are the indications for ABPM? Should we do it for all people, which may not be very practical? So these are the various scenarios where it could be helpful. Initial diagnosis of hypertension. See, for example, you find, you record the BP a couple of times, you find, say, it is 150/100 or 140/96. At the same time, the person is otherwise okay, there are no other risk factors, there is no evidence of any target organ damage. To find out whether the person is really hypertensive or not, you can always do an ABPM and find out what is the value. Is it exceeding 130/80 or the daytime value going above 135/85? But for this, an HBPM is many times enough, home blood pressure monitoring. Now, white coat hypertension, white coat effect, and masked hypertension, which I discussed in detail. Now, when you suspect masked hypertension, you suspect that when you find the office BP recording is borderline, mildly elevated, but you find evidence of target organ damage. ECG is showing LVH, or you do an echo, you find left ventricular hypertrophy, diastolic dysfunction. You look at the fundus, retina is showing evidence of hypertensive retinopathy. You find albuminuria. Then you'll be wondering what is happening. You do an ABPM, then you find by ABPM the person is really hypertensive. And masked hypertension is not at all uncommon. It occurs in around 10 to 15% patients. It is commoner in diabetic people, women, elderly people. Then paroxysmal hypertension, we all know pheochromocytoma and things like that. And resistant hypertension, many times you find. You call resistant hypertension when a person has been given 3 drugs, including a diuretic, near maximal dose. Still BP is not getting controlled. Commonest cause is non-compliance. The person may not be taking treatment properly. If you do an ABPM, at least in around 30% of cases, you find the blood pressure is reasonably controlled. So you can differentiate between resistant hypertension and pseudo-resistant hypertension by doing an ABPM. So whenever you encounter resistant hypertension, you have given calcium channel blocker, you have given ACE inhibitor, you have given diuretic. So before you start spironolactone as the fourth add-on drug, you really find out whether there is a real resistant hypertension by doing an ABPM. Then orthostatic, postprandial hypertension, dysautonomia, syncope in the elderly, very useful. Look at the dipping status, morning surge. BP variability, if you find that, start on calcium channel blocker. Then efficacy, timing of drugs, and very important point in pregnancy, Praemi gravida. They will be anxious even otherwise because they are pregnant, new environment, new mother-in-law. They will be very anxious, and along with that, some of the BP, the gynecologist records high BP. Really to know whether they are hypertensive or not, better to do an ABPM. And if the BP is really high, okay, then you think of labetalol and things like that. Similarly, in children, before embarking on drug treatment, good to do an ABPM. So this is a comparison of your the clinic BP monitoring. That is the random blood sugar-like thing. Your ABPM, the HbA1c, and your home blood pressure monitoring, which is, okay, daytime HbA1c. Now, these are the points. The true mean blood pressure you can detect only by ABPM or HBPM. Now, dipping status you can detect only by HB, the ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, because it is night. Morning surge, again, ABPM. Now, if you want to look at blood pressure variability, again, it is ABPM. But home blood pressure monitoring has a lot of advantages in which you can record the BP repeatedly. You can find out what is the true blood pressure of a person. You will get a good idea. It is like, you know, checking blood sugar multiple times during the day. One fasting, one pre-lunch, one post-lunch, one post-prandial, one pre-dinner. It's something like that, the HBPM. But there are some logistic issues. One is the cost factor. Second is the availability. Third, it is cumbersome, time-consuming, patient discomfort. Because, you know, you have to go to the clinic, get it connected. Then after 24 hours, you have to go back. Then they will connect it, take it out. Then they will go to the produce a recording, which they will send to you. And, you know, multiple inflations of the arm, which is very uncomfortable. Some people even develop some bruises and all over the arm because of the repeated cuff inflation. And sleep will be disturbed because some people are so sensitive. When the cuff is getting inflated, they wake up. So, you know, you may not get a true nocturnal BP recording, to be honest. And people who have had one ABPM may not agree for a second ABPM. So there are a lot of logistic issues. Then personal, then normal values, cutoff levels, how often to repeat. Those are all, you know, unresolved areas. But notwithstanding all that, if you really want to find out the cardiovascular risk, you know, the best one is an ABPM. Short of that will be a home blood pressure monitoring and clinic blood pressure monitoring. Clinic blood pressure is much, you know, away. It is inferior to the other three things. So just remember, there's a diabetic, you know, a symposium. ABPM is like your HbA1c, which really predicts the risk. Thank you very much.